Hello, everyone. This is The Amateur, where we're here just to talk life, hobbies, politics, ideologies, what have you. And on today's episode, we're going to be kind of reacting-ish, sort of, to a video compilation that was published by the Poor Man's Podcast. And it's titled, If You Work Out, Then You're a Fatphobic. It's a lot of feminist kind of cringe videos-ish. It's been a while since I last watched it, so I'm really we're going to be watching it together. But I'm mainly just going to be responding to the videos and not necessarily the Poor Man Podcast's takes on it. So I will post a link into the description comments if you want to go see his take on it officially. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Don't know what that accent was.
And get right into it.
Yeah, and then let's talk about...
and you see that as systemic discrimination, not allowing women in the front lines.
I mean, if they are just as skilled in combat, if they've completed their training, if they are decorated officers...
They're far less skilled. We had to lower the PT requirements for women to make it in. Women couldn't meet the same requirements that men did, so we lowered them for them.
Well, in combat, it's not like... It's with guns. It's with military-grade weapons. So it doesn't require the same amount of
we lowered the ruck times as far as how long you run with a pack on your back or carrying someone who's also in your platoon. We lowered the pull-ups. We lowered the push-ups. We lowered everything for female standards. And I mean, that's female privilege, right? Men had to meet a certain set of standards, and when women couldn't meet them, we lowered them. So I just think
that's not female privilege.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's promoting equality among the genders.
How is that promoting equality, though? By lowering the standards?
By allowing them to be involved directly.
Companies look.
Okay, so pausing on that first video. So I don't know how well you could hear it, but essentially it was just talking about these standards of women versus men in the military. And I think my take will probably be a little bit controversial. It shouldn't be, but I don't know. Again, so I like I've said in many of my previous videos, like I come from a very, very strong military family. A lot of my aunts have served, my sisters have served, my dad has served, my granddad has served. So military service runs throughout my family. So what I will say with this is I agree to the woman to an extent, and I'll explain myself, because if you're going to have something I think there's two different arguments to be had, and I can't say I'm completely 100% against, things like the police force and the military being 100% men only field. Like in firefighting and whatnot, like I can't say that I'm 100% against that argument, but what I will say that especially with things that are physical in nature, especially what she was talking about, like soldiers and troops and airmen and seamen and all these other things, like being on the front lines, like if there's a physical standard that needs to be had across the board. And I think what I say is like you need to have the minimum standard that you are willing to accept of everyone to be within this particular realm. And if that's your, like, set that minimum standard and make that standard be the same for everybody, regardless of sex, gender, orientation, whatever. Be able to meet that standard. And if you can meet that standard without cheating or any favoritism or like whatever, then let them pass. And if it's something where the standard is set to something where the vast majority of women aren't going to be able to make it, oh well, because that's what equality actually means. The woman here was talking about equity. So as far as with the Army, I think that's what Crowder was referring to, as far as the Army having different standards for men and women, that's actually morally and logically correct if you're going to understand that men and women are different. We have different physical and biological strengths and weaknesses. And so I want to say what happened. I think it might have been the 80s for the Army physical fitness test, that they did a study comparing women versus men doing 2-minute push-ups, 2-minute sit-ups, 2-mile run, and taking that average. And so they kind of use that to base their scale of passing or failing. There are plenty of women who are able to pass on the men's standard But the men's standard is significantly higher, but it's also because men are not women, men are going to be stronger than women. So that was reasonable and rational. But what I think that the Army, I think they're kind of moving, I don't know what the latest has come out on this, but like my sister was talking about the fact that they're moving to a Army combat fitness test, I think, something like that. And what it essentially is going to be one standard for all, that everyone, if you're going to be in this field, that you have to meet the standard. Is like what I've said is like the minimum standard, whatever that is, that's the standard that you need to have in order to allow these people to be like, that's just for everything, whether it's grades, whether it's physical, whether it's a job requirement. Like, these are the minimum standards that you're willing to accept of anyone entering within your field or profession. Doctors, like what is it, D's to get degrees, like if that's the minimum that you as a entity are willing to accept, that's the minimum that you as an entity are willing to accept. And if someone passes that and they meet that standard, then they shouldn't be prevented from doing so. So I think it's understanding, especially within this context, that one, men and women are different. So don't stop trying to act like, don't go with what the leftists say, like, oh, well, men and women are equals. Like, no, we're not. We're different. There's going to be different standards, different tools, which is why I'm saying, like, if you want to make it such that it's a men's only field, I'm not entirely against it, but I do understand that if there is a woman who is willing to serve and willing to put that time in and who actually meets the physical needs that you're expecting of the minimum soldier, either they meet or exceeds, they shouldn't be prevented from doing as such, because that's her volunteering to do so. I mean, that's happened in the past as well. I want to say even in the the Revolutionary War, I think on almost every single war that we've had in this country, that women have literally fought alongside men. Like, they became transsexuals, I guess you would say, because that was something that they wanted to do and they weren't going to let anyone stop them. I mean, that's self-ownership. I can't really fault that. I think I hit every point that was said there. But yeah, but again, like, especially, I think that was also the case. I think Officer Tatum was saying that with the female officer who was hesitant to want to tackle one of those teenage boys because she just didn't want to be as physical.
They grabbed this kid by the neck, threw him on the couch, and this officer goes to make the arrest. Now, let me tell you real quickly, the very first thing that I think of is this is called incompetence of the female officer, because she's on the scene, and the male officer who's on the ground is called competence. The weak, feckless female officer don't want to engage nobody. So that's why she's just standing up and letting the male officer have to arrest this guy by himself, and she up there talking. The man handling business down there, and she up there talking. And then, because she don't know what to do and where to go, she going to walk over here and try to help him arrest him, instead of her doing her job, arresting the kid that's sitting there on the couch.
So, and that's always a big discussion, especially in these combat roles, where if your soldier or your battle is injured and you need to drag a 200 and so pound man away from the battlefield to save his life, and you can't do that because you're not strong enough. Like, no one wants that. I don't want that. They don't want that. Their teammates don't want that. So that's why that minimum standard that you're willing to accept needs to be it. And I think also it's understanding, like, the military, Air Force, the Army, like, there are different jobs. Not everyone needs to be combat at the forefront of the combat, ready to fight. I think that's like their kind of goal or desire. Like, everyone's a soldier or everyone's an airman or whatever it is. But it's just like, there are going to be people who do cybersecurity and their literal job is to sit behind a desk hacking into things. Like, they're not going to be the ones at the forefront. So their expectation of them to have that same level of tactical proficiency and physical proficiency as like an infantryman is like, why? It's like, even in the specialty groups, like, you have Delta Force, I think, and Special Forces, like, those are like the elite of the elite. The Marines, like, what are the Marines? I don't know. Anyway, the point of the matter, though, is like, you have the elite of the elite. Would it be cool if everyone was as physically capable as those that were in those specialty fields? It would be awesome, but also there are specialty fields for a reason, because not everyone is capable or willing or able to be at that level. There are a lot of men in this country that do not want to fight. They don't want to join the Army. They don't want to join the service. Right? As it is currently, the military is an all volunteer force, and so it's a little bit crippling to an extent. I mean, I don't think everything that the Army is doing right now and the military is doing right now when it comes to those fitness standards is correct. I think they're moving there if they're trying to make a single standard for the minimum that they're willing to accept of all their soldiers. But it's like, don't shoot yourself in the foot eliminating the people who are willing to support and fight because you don't, I don't know, because they're women. Because I mean, even like World War I and World War II, is like women supported the military in a different way. Some of it was just being at home, being that caregiver, making sure that their family was taken care of, that they weren't stepping out. And some of it was that they were literal nurses and they were on the battlefield and they were tending and mending. I think they called them like angels of the battlefield or something like that. And then others, it was working on the planes, and that's where you get that whole "we can do it" or something along those lines. It's just like, if they have the capacity to serve in the field that they're able to do so, let them. Like, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense just to say no because no. Like, that's where I say again, is like, have that standard to meet it and get going. You know, I think I would just make it this video because I'm trying not to have my videos go extremely too long so that my engagement doesn't just die. So that will conclude this video as far as with, in summary, if you're going to pick a standard, pick the minimum standard that you're willing to accept of anyone in your field or profession, and let that be the standard that people need to pass. People, man, woman, child, whatever, and just, you know, do things. But what do I know? I'm just an amateur. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video, which will be a continuation of the Poor Man Podcast's video.